Okay, I believe that, yes, we are live.
Good afternoon and welcome to the January 2022 monthly meeting of the Executive Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. Today's meeting is being streamed online in accordance with the state's electronic meeting statute. Requirements for notice, access, and minutes are being met through electronic means, and the public and media can watch this meeting live on the City of Charlotte's Planning, Design, and Development Department's YouTube page. Participants are muted to minimize interruptions. Please do not unmute unless you are speaking. To make a motion, please state your name before making a first or second. All votes will be done by roll call. Please respond when your name is called. And we will begin with introductions. I am Kiba Samuel, and I am chair of the Planning Commission. Commissioner Gussman.
Philip Gussman, Vice Chair of the Planning Commission.
Barbie.
Erin Barbie, Planning Commission.
Walton.
Douglas Walton, Planning Commission.
And we'll now do staff, starting with Candace, please.
Candace Rory, planning staff.
Siobhan.
Siobhan Davis, planning staff.
Kathy.
Kathy Cornett, planning staff.
Allison.
Allison Craig, Deputy Planning Director.
We do want to acknowledge we have a member of our Planning Commission present at the meeting, Mr. Will Russell. We will have approval of our minutes now. Last month, the December 20th meeting, and which had to be postponed, I think, to the 29th of December. So that's why we have two dates up there. Do we have any discussion around minutes? If not, let's have a motion, please.
Commissioner Barbie, I'll make a motion
Where's yours?
for approval of the minutes of the the previous executive meeting on December 29th.
Second, do we have to have a motion for both of those, or can one motion serve for both?
One motion, but let's call out both dates, please.
This is Commissioner Barbie. I would like to amend my initial approval and restate that I make a motion to approve the minutes for December 20th, 2021 Executive Committee minutes and for December 29th, 2021 Executive Committee minutes.
Second again, Commissioner Walton.
Thank you. Motion by Barbie, second by Walton. Commissioner Gussman.
I vote aye.
Walton.
Aye.
Barbie.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Passes unanimous. We'll now get into our future business. So Allison, on the policy map and the UDO updates that are on for our standing agenda topics for Planning Commission meeting on the 7th and on the 7th, actually for every month, but particularly for the 7th. About how long would we be able to grant, would we need to be able to allot for those two updates?
I would like to just, hear from Alicia and Laura, but my inclination is that the policy map probably is a deeper dive just because we're getting closer to an adoption. The UDO, we're collecting comments. So I think that can be a brief update of just kind of how we're getting comments and maybe some general buckets, but I don't think that that would be a lengthy presentation.
Okay.
I think it's probably similar to what is going to TAP on Monday. And so getting a little bit more into what changed on the map, why did it change, and how are we receiving feedback from the community on those? And then just brief update on UDO. Kathy, does that sound right on policy map?
Right. So, it'll come to Planning Commission and committee, and the committee received a fairly in-depth presentation on the revisions to this from the first draft to the second draft, and we'll probably continue that. So I would think we would need at least 30 minutes for those.
Laura probably could do 15 to 20 on UDO.
Commissioner Gusman, I have a question for Kathy. Kathy, how did the small group sessions go? Did they all run their full time? Do you think there's a lot more that our commission? I feel that might be one of the better ways to get a read for what the debate might be like in early February.
Right, sure. So not all of them did, but we did have one that ran the full time. But I think that the discussion in that particular small group meeting kind of went beyond just the policy map and onto like kind of some other broader topics. But other than that, I feel like they all did not necessarily, they didn't run a full hour, more like a half an hour.
Okay.
So basically about an hour. So the university city vision plan is on for February 7th. I'm trying to figure out, Allison, where I'm really anxious to hear about CTR. And I'm wondering where we fit that in. I know getting closer to policy map adoption. So I don't want to hijack February. I know that's a critical month for us for that process, but when can we bring maybe Ed or someone from CDOT over to discuss that with us?
I mean, I think we could even give a 5-minute, 2-minute update on the UDO and eliminate that so that you can get CTR in there. I will say that originally what CDOT had planned was to have the streets map fall in sync with the policy map. And then the CTR would be closer along with the UDO. And that's still the case. So there is time to review the CTR. And the streets map now is really going to be adopted along with the SMP, which is scheduled for, hold on, let me make sure I remember, is it June, Candace?
June.
Yeah, thank you.
June.
So I think you have some time, but what I think we could shorten UDO so you can at least start a conversation with CDOT on some of those items.
I would agree with Allison on that because I think that we've gotten a couple of UDOs back to back here, and I think they've basically kind of been the same presentation-ish. Short, just a few dates move, and if we can just hear where they are, where they're going, and what the obstacles are, it's an elevator talk, and it should really only be a couple of minutes long.
Yeah, I mean, they're digesting information right now, and I don't think they've fully digested it enough to be able to provide you with something that I think is substantially different than what you've heard thus far.
So I would not even be opposed to scrapping UDO, although that is a standing topic. I wouldn't mind making that change in favor of bringing forth a CTR. What I'm afraid of with the CTR is that this is already February. And if we don't have a chance to really absorb the information, be able to react to it, I don't want any of our commissioners feeling shortchanged if we were to bring this to them in May instead or April. So just want everyone to be able to hear this information because it will help guide will impact for sure zoning information. And I think that with us being fairly close to now having to switch committees again, I think it's just a good time for us to really review what's coming forth and what we'll have to really kind of roll into the UDO also. So I just want, again, commissioners to have enough time to absorb the information, react to it, and be able to put forth some inquiry there.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I wanted to make a suggestion, and Allison, you tell me what you think. I was in conversation with the CDOT director because of how they're now rolling out the CTR and the streets map, which would go along with the policy map. It's under the umbrella of the SMP, and so I think it would be helpful to provide at this point like an overview of like an SMP, and then how the street maps and the CTR are under that umbrella so that it provides context.
Yep, I totally agree.
Okay, so then if that's the case, then University City might get pushed to March. Do we have that locked in yet? In terms of scheduling?
I do. And I mean, considering policy map, I think that, because I think policy map was planning to take a deeper dive at planning committee. Not sure exactly how long the presentation was going to be for planning commission. Kathy, were you planning a full in-depth presentation for planning commission in February?
Typically that one's a little bit shorter, and the more in-depth one happens at the committee level. So if you need to trim it up, you probably could. The time,
Yeah, you could trim that one and eliminate UDO and put SMP in there.
So UDO goes away. Policy map, I think, because we really didn't have, like Kathy alluded to earlier, those meetings in small groups hopefully were beneficial enough, and that's why they were able to maintain the time frame. And I think that presentation was brought to planning committee this week.
Yes.
I think that a 10 to 15 minute as needed for policy map for February, scrap the UDO.
Can I ask how long are we expecting for University City?
University City, I think the bigger question for me is how much time do we need for SMP and CTR?
I say let's constrain University City and give them, at the most a half an hour, and simply, be the banks of the river and not just let the river run over us.
I'm good with that, and I definitely I know I've been asking to see that vision plan, but now learning that the CTR it's coming up in June. That information is critical to what's directly in our purview and can be used to make recommendations or base our recommendations on zoning decisions. So I think we need to be well informed to be able to hit the ground with that thing. I need some information on some deeper data on CTR. I've gotten the overview, seen the presentation to council, but just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get that information, grasp it, ask questions, and like I said, just be able to react to it. So I think we pinned it 30 minutes to University City, 10 to 15 minutes for policy map, the balance of the meeting, SMP and CTR. And I'm sorry to be using acronyms, guys, just so that everybody's on the same page. SMP is Strategic Mobility Plan, and the CTR, help me, Allison, with that one.
Comprehensive Transportation Review.
Thank you. So those two items. I'm really excited to hear about CTR specifically, but if it's being part of S&P, we don't want to miss that either. So,
I could make a suggestion too, just to the reference about the banks. Maybe you put the University City plan last, and start with the other two, and then that way you make sure you get the information you want on those two items, and then conclude with the University City Vision Plan.
yeah, that would be fine in terms of order.
I would also suggest that if we get material about S&P, I don't know when it seems like last fall we got something, and I think Aaron said, hey, is there a one pager that just has all the dates on it or something like that? If we could get that material before the meeting, so we wouldn't have to do our learning in the meeting, I think that would be of some advantage.
I don't think it'd be a stretch to say we have quite a few commissioners who might not be fully up, not just on the alphabet soup lingo, but
Yes.
even how all of this fits together, especially the folks who've joined in the last, honestly, 2 years.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
glad
it wasn't solid when the last time we saw it. So
I'm glad you both mentioned that, because remember when we had, what is this month? January. This was our November. Might have even been of October. No, I'm sure it was November. I'm not sure it was November, where we were having debate about, it was October. We were having debate about, it was November, sorry, final answer, November, where we were having discussion about our work program, and the topic came up, I believe it was Alicia who said, hey, we need a policy or initiatives type intro type meeting. Here are all the
We
things
call
that,
it a policy 101.
thank you, that, Candace. And that so that we can all remember all the several initiatives that are currently underway simultaneously, and kind of keep them in their correct buckets. Just like I inadvertently said a few minutes ago that CTR is in UDO. It's not in UDO, it's in S&P. So all the changes that we've made to what belongs where and who owns which document or policy or initiative, I think that is very important to kind of keep all in the loop. But we have such time constraints here with policy map adoption coming up in February, and just thank you for bringing that back up, Philip, but we'll need to revisit that at some point very, very soon.
I would suggest we have another small group party on all of that, because like I said, before it was like, oh, these things are going to all happen kind of together, and we saw the interdependence between them, but we didn't ever get the one pager, I don't think, of when things were going to happen, because it may not exist. I'm not saying that nobody fell down. It may just not exist right now.
Well, I'm not really hankering to get that as much as I'm hankering for everybody to understand how much is on our plate. Because I think with us looking at these things in silos right now, Policy Map has our attention because that's what's up next, so to speak. But all of these other things that are, again, directly under our purview, but also in the pipeline, ready to fire out. I just want to make sure nobody is missing anything. But we first made mention of this policy 101. I had already said it won't be in the form of a commission meeting. It won't be in a full commission meeting. I think because we have such meaty topics already to discuss on that broad nature, and I think that smaller groups will be more beneficial for conversation like that. Allison, do you mind? I'm going to loop you into an email that I'll send maybe to Alicia so that we can all kind of brainstorm. I'm very aware that the staff has a limited bandwidth. So just kind of want to get her feedback and revisit that topic with her to figure out what might be a good time frame and the best process to accomplish that.
Sure, no problem.
Anybody else for February? Excuse me.
I think that's a good plan.
Phil, did you have anything special for February planning committee? Obviously, policy
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah, the policy map recommendation might run a little bit longer, but Aaron had an excellent idea, especially after we had our most recent dive into what is it we're supposed to be doing as a planning commission and what exactly impacts do we have and where and what is the legal framework and everything. Aaron, would you like to speak a little bit more about what you were thinking? Because I think I'm on the same page. I just want to make sure I don't misrepresent your thoughts.
You absolutely are. It's almost like a 101 is needed for the work that we're doing. What came up was around the mandatory referrals. And I had some simple questions that I guess led to a larger conversation about our knowledge and our ability to use our voice / power, not power / what we can say no to versus saying yes to. And so the example was Mecklenburg County was purchasing some land. They were land banking without any type of plan that had been established. There was no master plan. And so my question was basically around how are we approving this mandatory referral, not knowing what it could lead to in the future? Are we doing a good job by citizens, period? And so at that time, we thought that it would be great to make it a broader conversation on our abilities to and not to approve things. So fill in where I left, maybe left something out.
No, I think that's about it. And I don't know if we need an outside resource, if we had just have some staff who could probably chime in. Specifically, I'd love to hear make sure we've got some of the people who are usually going to be there anyway for the mandatory referrals, for example. Katz maybe is the CMS person. And if we have anybody who can tell us, give us a better definition of what is the legal process and justification for the mandatory referrals. Because I also think it would be helpful as we continue to rotate back and forth between zoning and planning, that we continue to take both of these responsibilities seriously. And as it's likely that if we're going to do well down the road with affordable housing and with a lot of the increase in park accessibility of parks and everything, we're going to continue to see a lot of mandatory referrals, even if we quote unquote fix some of the zoning things where we don't see as many rezonings. But I don't know if February's the best, but I'd love to know what staff thinks on that.
Mr. Vice Chair, I've actually had this conversation with legal. I actually had a meeting with them 2 weeks ago about some CATS mandatory referrals and not necessarily what is allowed, but what is our purview as regarding planning committee. And
Excellent.
I think that there is some guidance that has been presented before to planning committee in the past that I have that I can kind of disseminate to the group. But I think I kind of manage the mandatory referral process at this point. And with the knowledge that I have regarding like just the past process, as well as because this process is mandatory and based on state statute, we definitely need legal to be included. So I want to pull Tari in, as well as I think there's a new attorney for city real estate, because I think he has definitely dealt with with mandatory referrals as well, and has an opinions on that. So I think between me and the two attorneys, we might can address kind of the questions and the issues and practices and things of that nature, that processes, and kind of address that. I would just need to get on their calendar and see when they would be available to do that. Maybe coordinate some of the questions that you have, you can send to me beforehand, and just let me know which month you would want us to be on the agenda.
But maybe we see if we can go ahead and target March's meeting. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
This is Commissioner Walters. Didn't we do this like 2 years
Yes.
ago? Okay. All right.
I want to make sure that I am clear on what the ask is. Are we asking that the full commission be briefed on the mandatory referral process as it pertains to how and what we use to base decisions?
I'll tell you, I joined 2 years ago, but it must have been right after this because I didn't get that introduction. So it's possible that, I mean, I don't know if I'm switching to zoning or anything like that, but it's, I would love the way that, who was it? Was it David? Was it David that said it might be a good idea for everybody to know this information?
So I think that Douglas and you, we may have had a conversation about this also while we're on planning, but first of all, the orientation process was to be revisited. And I think it worked that this information, we had explored a series of things that should be included in an orientation session. And mandatory referral was one of those things. I just, again, I want to be clear that this sounds to me that it fits within this policy 101 type group setting thing. And I think that I think you have some very tenured commission members who I don't think would benefit from this information. So maybe doing it in a smaller group session to where we can kind of target this information a little bit better for those who need it might be the best way to go about it. It's kind of hard to do because everybody new is on planning.
Right.
So
Which is
that we use planning committee time.
That's more what I was thinking. I perceive this to be a 15 to 20 minute conversation addressing the specifics and questions.
Work session.
Yeah,
I think that would be probably the best, especially if we're talking about something that is needed right now, because you guys do mandatory referrals every month. Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's 10. And because everybody new is on planning committee, that happens by default. That's obviously not by design, but I'm sorry, that happens by design, but there's a reason for it that's in our interlocal agreement. But I think that 20 minutes and maybe I should go back and watch was this past Tuesday's meeting?
It was before the recording.
It was prior to the meeting.
Oh.
It was just like, I just had a question of David, and that's when we were like, well, we'll bring it to executive.
Okay.
And so just so we can talk about it and have exactly this dialogue, honestly. And I think it does make sense if we just kept it on the planning committee, and maybe we periodically every couple of years plan on something like this, though I know institutional knowledge is a little bit hard to guarantee every couple of years. But
so your March, maybe your March meeting, because since February's got the adoption or recommendation.
Correct.
Perfect.
I think this happened during the Bolin McClung era. If I shall say that name out loud, and it elicits smiles from everyone.
I miss him. He was spicy.
Let's go find him.
Imagine how happy he'd be with all these virtual meetings.
Yeah,
Aaron said he's spicy.
Yeah.
yeah. But
okay.
it wasn't a long conversation. But once you finally figure out what the rules are, not to bias, I will just say it puts everything in perspective.
Mhm, it does.
Okay.
All right. So that's what you guys have up your sleeve for March. And I think that for March in the Planning Commission, we had mentioned bringing back CMS for
Yes, please.
some additional information. And I think we'll be seeing a little bit more of Mr. Lucaria. Spent some time with him last night, and not last night, what's today?
It was far too long.
That was Tuesday night, and he's fun. A lot of fun and very knowledgeable, and it looks like for the next 2 months we'll be spending a lot more time with him on zoning. So March, maybe we can ping him if he's not too busy to come back to see Planning Commission. And that's all I had for March so far, depending on how our February meeting goes. And I hate to compress anyone. I know we get to these meetings and sometimes I ask people to shorten their presentation because we've run over, or we get excited about a topic and we want to ask more questions. But so I don't know if we'll have to do that with University City. I don't like to ask anybody to shorten their presentation. But if we do have to do that, maybe we invite them back for March as well. Committee assignments. Not for Planning Commission, sorry, for council. So TAP committee, I guess all committees have changed, Allison, and I think I got an email with them. Have we had, so I brought up a concern yesterday, and Alicia and I talked a little bit offline, but for TAP committee, because the policy map, I'm imagining, will go before TAP, obviously, for recommendation shortly after planning or before Planning Committee. I can't remember the schedule exactly. Have we had leadership changes on TAP?
No. So
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem is still chairing TAP. Just to clarify, it doesn't go before them for a recommendation because it goes before Planning Committee.
Okay.
But it does go before them for review.
Afterward. Okay. I think that was all I had for in terms of my notes. I do want to request, Candace, can you send, please, I think I ask for it every February, the list of commissioners and tenure. I believe we have minimum of 3 people that are rolling off in June, and I think we might have 4. So I just want to continue to stay ahead there as we kind of map out when to do committee assignments. So
Madam Chair, just to be clear, you want the tenure and the time on each committee, correct?
yes, please.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Madam Chair, I just have a couple of things I would like to throw into the water, and they don't necessarily need to have any discussion now. I was thinking about putting them in an email, but I was lazy, so I'm going to just say them out loud now. As we go forward in the future, I would love for us to broaden up our the topics that we discuss in Planning Commission meetings, the full commission, and to give us a little bit of perspective. I kind of feel like we've talked a lot about what planning initiatives are are right in front of our face here lately. And I think that they're perhaps, you know, we had the guy in from UNC talking, I can't remember his name, the professor, and people perked up and had questions. And, you know, just for lack of time, we didn't really get to address that. But I thought that going forward in the future, I would love to see us broaden up the people that we have presenting to us. Perhaps I'd love for us to have some regular conversations as a part of our meeting that are dialogue between planning commissions in the state and other cities in the state. I think we'd have a great conversation if we had a guided, moderated discussion with the planning commission from Raleigh, just to see what kind of things that they're going through, because they've gone over to form-based design. What the hell happened? Did it make things better or worse? You know, we've got the folks up in Cornelius who've said, hey, we're gonna put a pause on apartments.
We don't want them.
Yeah, you know,
No.
I'm just saying.
Listen, I agree with you, and there was such a time.
Okay.
That time wasn't, though, when the 2040 plan was postponed and now compressing all of the other initiatives that weren't supposed to be on top of one another as they are. So I agree with you, absolutely. And I think that between policy map recommendation and the fact, until UDO kind of comes along, we might have that gap April, May, to where we can bring some stuff different. But we used to do this every month.
I'm just putting it out there. And I understand the importance of those you know, local topics that are in front of us. Hopefully, you know, I think probably everybody, you know, Alicia and Kathy want policy map stuff kind of knocked out here in the next, you know, if there's public hearing next month, then it's on pause because everything will just go through perfectly, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just throwing it out there as a go forward for us. Hopefully we can do some of that. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Enough said.
Mr. Vice Chair?
I think we're set.
Okay. Move along to the calendar now.
And the times are correct.
I wanted 12 more emails
Thank
with
you,
the
Candace.
corrections. I was looking forward to that.
And the 21st is not a holiday. Welton?
I'm looking at my calendar to see, but you know, I don't think it is. No.
So that's not a state holiday. That's President's Day.
I know. I'm Googling federal holidays 2021 as we speak. Monday, February 15th is George Washington's birthday, celebrated on the federal level. And I assume that our lovely local government will also take the opportunity to celebrate that day as well.
Oh.
I'm going to the dentist on the 17th if you guys want to celebrate that instead.
But not Washington's birthday.
Well, I'm just saying that's when it's going to be celebrated.
Well, good thing you're not on planning committee.
There's
Okay.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but in the February calendar, we may need a February 22nd planning committee special meeting.
Or policy map?
Yeah, because that would be after the public hearing, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Which should
we
be that's when we did the recommendation once before we had one of those little flip-floppy doodah things. We did just a short meeting, or we can move the meeting, I guess, just as long as it's appropriately noticed.
Yeah. Is there, what disadvantage is there to saying we'll move the whole meeting? Anyone?
Sorry, I didn't hear you completely.
What's the disadvantage to saying we'll move the whole meeting to the 22nd?
I don't see a disadvantage in that. Unless,
And it would allow-
Kathy, you all need to have some kind of recommendation before, but we didn't do the recommendation. I think it was TOD. We did the recommendation after it was the public hearing.
Yep.
Yeah,
TOD,
the 15th would have been more of an update, and then the 22nd is the recommendation, the way we have it on the schedule.
I mean, I could make the 2 meetings work. That's not a problem for me, but just putting it out there, I don't know if the entire group's gonna be available 2 weeks in a row, but I mean, we obviously put it on the calendar, we see what we can get.
Yeah, but if you don't have quorum at one of those.
Oh, yeah, and we know if we don't have 7, we could have an awkward moment.
Yeah.
Shay, Bill.
Hey,
So I guess the issue is the map is released the day before your meeting. So if you feel like you would be ready to make a recommendation, then you could do it on the 15th, but otherwise you might need the 22nd.
I think that the reason we put that week in there before was the recommendation was given after the public hearing to take into account any comments that might have come from the public. Nothing came that was of any substance or changed anything.
Yeah.
I think the recommendation has to come on the final draft, and if the final draft isn't released the 20th, 21st.
Valentine's Day.
The let me double check here.
But I think that's the purpose of having the meeting on the 22nd is, or after, whatever date you guys decide, that the recommendation has to be on the final draft.
And that's the 14th.
The final draft.
There's public comment.
Now, my only question, I guess, is can we move the 15th to the 22nd instead of doing the 15th? I think. Because I think we can, I mean, unless you tell me there's a whole list of mandatory referrals queued up that are going to take a while and sound complicated. I'd be surprised if you're absolutely correct. I think pressing everybody to make a decision on one day of looking at it is, at the very least, it's going to be challenging. And certainly someone could point out, I have only gotten it loaded on my machine. And unable to look at it.
Think of it this way, Phil, the meeting on the 15th, was it the 15th? Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the meeting on the Tuesday, the 15th would be
Tuesday's the 16th, by the way.
Several weeks after. Candace says it's the 15th, and she says this thing is right.
Oh, sorry, wrong year.
Welton.
Good job, Candace. Thank you very much for getting.
You know what? I'm going to mute my mic and talk. I'm sorry. Never mind.
Just say bet on Candace. No. But the meeting on the 15th, the update on the benefit to having the planning committee meet on the 15th is to hear anything that has come after the second draft release.
That's true.
So at that juncture, I would imagine that staff has some semblance of what might resemble a final draft. And that could be the basis of you guys' discussion that night. I do agree with you. Hearing all of that information in one night and then saying, yeah, I'm going to be recommending that, I don't know how beneficial that will be. So I think the meeting on the 15th makes sense, even if a special one has to be called the following.
Yeah.
Which could completely be.
If we stay on schedule, then I guess let's go ahead and plan on adding the 22nd.
You mean both or just the 27th?
Both. Yeah.
So both the 15th and the 27th. So regular meeting is still February 15th, planning committee, and then a brief.
If right, assuming the schedule stays the same. Otherwise, obviously, we can.
Yeah, but it should be a virtual meeting that you can do in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Anything else? Great. So-
Otherwise, I'll motion to approve the calendar.
Okay. And I'm sorry, well, I guess it's too late to change it back now. We initially changed the March meeting. Douglas, don't laugh.
Well, you know, they're changing the dates even as we speak for the primary. I think they're trying to push it out to June or July now.
Yeah, so we initially changed it because we thought we were having March primaries, and March primaries aren't happening anymore. So do we change the meeting that was originally scheduled for March 1st back to March 1st? Since there won't be a primary in March.
You know, for the sake of it happens on the first Monday of each month and remembering that, I would say yes, that would be a possibility, but I don't know that it really matters to anybody. If somebody screams loudly, I would ask at the next meeting. If somebody screams loudly, then we don't, or, you know, do what's appropriate. I'm mumbling, I'm sorry. I feel like Michael Stipe.
You feel what?
So I feel like Michael Stipe.
So I've just made an executive decision. I think we're gonna leave it there because with the changes that I have to send Candace through for Siobhan to change the booking on 267 and do all that. Yeah, we're gonna keep it March 8th. Final answer. Unless one of you are kicking and screaming. And I don't hear any, so motion for calendar, please.
Motion to approve the calendar for February and March.
Commissioner Barbie, second.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, motion by Gusman, second by Barbie. Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Gusman,
Yes.
Barbie,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes, that calendar is finalized. And anything else? Candace, did I leave anything off? Did I forget anything, anybody?
Kathy's got a good point. I presumed that when we added it, that was the motion I was making. So I guess to clarify my motion to approve the calendar as it is before us with the inclusion of the planning committee meetings on the 22nd.
Thank you so very much for that edit. And I'll make that an official motion. Commissioner Gusman, Commissioner Barbie, do you still want a second?
Yes.
Motion by Gusman, second by Barbie Walton.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Gusman,
Yes.
Barbie.
Yes.
Thank you. And if no one has anything additional, I bid you all a good evening.
You as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.